Yeah, so I'm co-founder of the Mars Society London, and we started. I don't know if are you familiar at all with Mars Society? No.
Yeah.
So Mars Society is the international advocacy organization. It was founded in '98 by Dr. Robert Zubrin, who is one of the biggest authorities on Mars. And they're mostly advocacy organizations, so they're just educating people and running different projects related to Mars. So my co-founder who'll join later, Martin, oh, he's there somewhere, Martin. We started Mars Society London just to bring different people to create more exposure for this topic, because we realized that a lot of this stuff is happening, and in US at the conference there's so many interesting projects and very real life things that were happening, but then in London nobody really spoke about it and knew about it. So we really wanted to bring more people into the conversation and create a multidisciplinary community to encourage people to work on projects together. So yeah, we ran hackathons and just really bringing different people from kind of tech. We focus, our own startup is neurotechnology and AI. So that's kind of a big focus, hence the mental well-being and psychology. And yeah.
So there is also will explain.
I'm just seeing a lot of the students come in, so I'm not sure if you want to.
Yeah, I think we also will have, I think, shouldn't forget. Oh, and Colin is here. Hey, Colin. Hello.
Hi.
We also have Martin in the top right-hand corner. Hi, Martin.
Hey, hey.
And we have our physical in-person special guest here as well. So we're going to be discussing you more in detail, but actually we can get started. I think the only person who is missing is the head of our department, but he said he might jump after. So I think we are ready to get started. I'm going to let Zara and Martin to make the kind of first few words of introduction before I start to introduce the particular, introduce the speaker, and then after that introduce the brief.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Okay.
Zara, do you want to go, or should I say a few?
Yeah, I can start. Why don't I start, and then you can tell them more about the technology. So yeah, hi everyone. Thank you very much for joining. We're really excited to finally come to the final day of the students presenting this work. So for the context, I'm Zara Kaitati. I'm a co-founder of Mars Society London. And also director and CEO of neurotechnology company Maaind. And we've collaborated on this brief with Cesar and his students, the Design Plus course at the Hong Kong University. And so I'll tell you a little bit about Mars Society London and why this collaboration is quite important for us. So we started Mars Society London 2 years ago after going to California to the International Mars Society Convention. It's been running since 1998, and it was founded by Dr. Robert Zubrin. Any of you who know anything or involved in Mars will know his name. He's one of the biggest authorities in this field, and anything related to Mars is probably in one way or another kind of connected to him. So the reason why we wanted to start this here in London was just realizing how much was happening in that space, in this, space exploration, and how much real work was going towards actually creating opportunities to expand humanity's reach into other planets and Mars in this case. And there was very little discussion here in London about that, or at least very practical and serious discussion, and specifically outside of space-related fields. So I come from design background myself, and I thought that bringing more designers into this area would be incredibly valuable, because the kind of questions and focus that we could explore would be very important. And when eventually it happens and we are starting to expand humanity's reach on other planets, it would be very important to have multidisciplinary approach to this. So we started Mars Society London. We ran different projects from hackathons to different kind of events. We try to have a very practical approach to everything. While it's important to obviously raise awareness and educate people about what's happening, we also want to have very practical real life applications. And a big motivation question for me is, I think that when we think of difficult constraints of Mars, we can actually innovate for, for things here on Earth. And another big focus of Mars Society London chapter is on artificial intelligence and entrepreneurship. And that comes from the startup that Martin and I co-founded together, which is a neurotechnology startup. And maybe I'll pass on to you, Martin, to tell more about our work and how we came to work.
Sure, yeah, I won't kind of ramble for long, but our company is building technology for tracking and understanding your state of mind from different kinds of signals. So like voice signals, biometrics, EEG, behavioral signals. And yeah, and so we decided to have this kind of hobby project, the Mars Society London, as kind of a fun hobby project. And then we kind of decided, well, why not kind of try to combine that with, we're space geeks, but our day job is AI and neuroscience. And then Cesar came to us as well and said, hey, do you want to collaborate and do this kind of project with my students and kind of help guide them a little bit towards thinking, how can we bring technology for this kind of technology that we're actually building today at the startup for tracking, understanding states of mind? How can we bring that to Mars, right? So how can kind of the experience of moving to Mars, living on Mars, how can that be transformed? What might that look like? What might the human and social experience look like if we have this sort of technology and we keep developing this sort of technology? So here we are.
So one of the things I'm just going to add to that, Marta, I just want to add to that. So we, in the short term as a company, we're focusing on basically understanding mental states and psychology. So right now, and that's one of the problems we kind of solving here on Earth today, is that there's no way to track and understand individual mental states. So whether it's your stress levels, your emotional states, your tiredness levels, your attention, we don't have a very good awareness of that. And it often impacts our ways of living, our decision making. And when you go to places like Mars, where it's such a hostile environment, we cannot afford to do these kind of human mistakes that we do. So kind of starting there, we basically work on a voice technology that can detect your stress levels and your cognitive states. It's a very novel approach that we're taking, which we call multimodal, and we train. So we use very sophisticated AI models, and we train them with brain signals, with biometrics, with heart rate, and voice as well. And the long-term vision for us is brain-computer interfaces. Again, some of you may be more familiar with this field, others less, but although it sounds like science fiction, it actually is happening, and there are companies actively working in this field, like Neuralink, Kernel, and we think that it's very within 10 years probably we're going to see more and more applications of that, and obviously going to Mars, a lot of these kind of technologies, they raise a lot of questions that we wanted students to explore. We wanted them to think of different scenarios of how that kind of technology will be used on Mars, should be used on Mars. And yeah, so this was really a way for us to raise awareness, to start the discussion, and we really hope more people understand and start really raising interesting questions around the direction that this technology should take as it evolves. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Thanks so much. Great. So I just want to quickly introduce our great guest as well. So maybe I'm going to ask the guest one question, which is, why would you be interested yourself in the settlement on Mars? So Colin, why do you think settling on Mars would be interesting?
Mars is very interesting just because I think Earth is a nice place. However, I think in order for us to have a sustained population beyond just a single planet, I think it's in the interest of humanity to settle on Mars, because being multi-planetary enables us to it's aspirational. We're exploring and spreading amongst the cosmos, but it's also a hedge against existential threats to humanity, I think. And Mars, again, I think from the best we can see, is also relatively habitable compared to other planets. Not as habitable for sure as Earth in the Goldilocks zone, where we have running water and an atmosphere, but it does have a lot of natural resources, as well as it's Earth-like in many ways.
The other great panelist that we have joining today is Professor Maaind Pennington, who's joining us. So thanks for calling from San Francisco. It's 5 a.m. I think where you are, right? Thanks a lot. We have Professor Maaind Pennington, who is calling in from Tokyo. So what attracts you in the idea of having human settlement on Mars?
Oh, yeah, tricky question. You dropped one on me. I think personally, it would terrify me to go to Mars. So I'm very interested in watching much younger, more enthusiastic people make that adventure. But I think from the perspective of, we haven't quite discovered everything on Earth, but there's the opportunity to be an amazing pioneer, to go somewhere that no person has ever been before. I mean, you can't lose that kind of amazing romantic notion. So that's exciting, but I think I'm going to be an audience on this one and not a participant.
Thanks a lot. We'll definitely have like a small discussion at the end. I would love to have your input. The other great panelists that we have today, we have Christine. So Christine, you have done something which pertains to like having like astronauts self-care. Can you just talk about this in a few seconds?
Well, for my thesis project, I was just more interested in the idea of what kind of sensorial experiences are people going to miss as they embark on long-term space travel. And one of the things that I personally really enjoy here on Earth is the feeling of water and being immersed in water. And then it kind of got me curious about like their bathing rituals and things like that. And right now on the International Space Station, they don't even have any kind of like quick shower or things like that. They just literally wash their bodies with wet cloth and then use dry shampoo. And I was just curious how we could potentially recreate an experience of a bath of some sort in outer space, which then led me to build bath. So essentially, it's questioning how we have a bubble bath in outer space.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
And then we have Florian here. So, Florian, what would be your interest in space exploration as a designer?
As a designer, so while I personally haven't touched space as a design subject yet, it's slightly in part involved when, so Christine and I work as a design studio, so I guess I worked a little bit alongside, but I guess the main interest for me was really just seeing how Christine was repurposing water. So my main background, I guess, is industrial design, but I guess with a sustainable interest. So it's really my interest in Mars or space colonization is really how can we reinvent habits to become more sustainable that we're living here on Earth.
Great, thanks a lot. Okay, so without further ado, oh sorry, I don't know if Dr. Sharon Frey is here. Eric, are you around? Are you around, Eric? I don't see Eric. Okay, if Eric is not here, I guess we'll just go ahead. I don't see him in the guests, so I guess he's there. Where? Where?
He's muted.
Fourth row. Oh, okay. Eric, if you're here, we would love to have a few words from you. If you can join us. Are you there? Eric? Oh yes, great. You are muted. Let me mute this camera and then unmute you on the big TV. Okay, we should be able to hear you. Are you there? Oh, now you lost your camera. Eric? You are unmuted, but we don't see your camera anymore. Eric? Eric? Hello? Eric? Hello? I hope we can, Eric?
Hi, sorry, Caesar. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Caesar?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you for organizing all this. I think to answer the question, actually, the thing that interests me personally most about Mars is actually how we can also see our own planet. And so, although the ambition is very high, and to reach and strive for another planet, I think is very, very meaningful. I think actually how we also think about our own planet is an incredibly difficult question, and what limitations that we already have as well. So I think as I think about Mars, I actually think about anything that we can do now that actually then also has an input and impact on how we can eventually reach Mars, but also how we can have an input and impact about how we treat our own planet. And to realize that it is incredibly difficult. And even if we are able to achieve it, it's not something that would be easy to obtain, let's say, for a mass population. So we really have to really consider how we treat our own planet at the same time. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot. And so now we're going to hear the students' presentation. And so we're going to get started. Okay.
So you don't say the brief.
Oh, sorry. Yes. So I'm going to ask everybody to hold if you could hold this. Okay, so the brief, the way it's structured. Oh, okay, maybe I'll just lower down the volume so there's no echo. Sorry about this. Okay. Okay, so the brief is designed for multi-planetary species. So the idea and the question that we ask is, we are going to go to Mars. That's now becoming certain. But the big question is, once we get there, it's going to be a very difficult environment. So do we need to redesign our minds and our bodies? And this is a question also that comes with a lot of untold story. Because the people who are going to go on Mars are not going to do it by themselves. They're not doing it only for themselves. They'll be sent by large companies. They're going to be sent by governments. They will have a lot of expectations on them. How much privacy will give to them? How will they relate to each other in a small and confined environment, and being with a small population, and then with a very large population? And so instead of making a single assumption, we ask the students to look at it from a timeline perspective. So we've invented telecommunication modalities, with the Morse code, and then the telephone with the landline, the wireless phone. And in 2020, there's 0 person on Mars. And in 2025, we expect that we'll have the first settlements and the first people there. By 2030, we expect 10 to 100 people. And at the same time, neuroscience and brain-computer interface will also make progress. So then we expect that we will go even further than just wearable device. We will have brain-computer interface that help us to read better and better the brain. And in further stage, we expect that we'll be able to write into the brain. And even in the future, to talk from brain to brain and break the bandwidth limitation, like Elon Musk would say. So that's with a company like Neuralink, or like what Maaind is trying to do. And so then the question will be, as this technology will progress and become possibly more and more intrusive and more transparent, the population on Mars will also grow. Also, the politics are going to change. Now, China is becoming a superpower, and the way that they organize human society is very different than America is also changing human society or organizing decision making. So the question is, as all these different forces happen, growing population on Mars, advancement in neuroscience and brain-to-computer interfaces and brain-to-brain interfaces, how will we design our bodies and minds to live together in this new hostile environment, and how will we thrive? So this is a question that we will ask, and each of the students, groups by groups, they have taken a different time, and we're going to go in chronological order, starting 2020, then 2025, 2030, etc., all the way to 2100. So the students will present to you their concepts, each of them for 5 minutes, and they will then you will have 5 minutes to ask them questions, roughly. And what is really important is that especially for the guest judge, we're asking you to get your feedback. So please, if you can scan this QR code It's very, very important because maybe in these five minutes of Q&A, you won't have the time to actually ask them the question and give them some new references. So if you could take your phone and then scan this QR code, and then this will lead you to a Google form. And in this Google form, there will be some criteria for evaluating the students' projects. But most importantly is the last paragraph, which is going to ask you to ask extra questions or make some comments and give them some feedback or suggest them to look at some references. Of course, we'll have the panel afterwards, but maybe you want to be very, very specific. Okay, so without further ado, we're going to have the first team. So Mars 2023 with Wendy Shuang Deng. So Wendy is not here in person because she's in China, so she's going to be presenting remotely. Okay, so.
Hi,
Wendy, are you here?
Yeah.
Wendy?
Hello. Can I hear me?
I will take my phone back because I need to mute it. Thanks very much. Okay. Okay, Wendy. Wendy, are you able to speak?
Actually, could you move the PowerPoints to the next slide? I present the video there. And could you please play the video at the full screen?
Great. This one?
I can't see the screen.
I should share my screen.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Okay, I'll share my screen. Do you see my screen now?
Oh, yes. Yeah,
Okay,
could you play the video at the full screen?
Sure.
Hello, everyone. I'm Wendy. It is said that recognition influences on behaviors. As human beings with emotions, our mental reactions can affect our physical actions and thus lead to different results. Apart from personal control of our spirits, aromas are able to adjust our moods. Hence, I designed an aromatic atomic printer earring. It consists of 2 solar power panels, a storage battery, a heart rate monitor chip, a spring, 6 PET atom containers, and a reactor. When the LED green gleam inside the chip penetrates the earlobe, the reflection from the blood can indicate the heart rate. The built-in program will detect the emotion and recommend a fragrance. Then the gates of atom containers will open, letting the atoms enter the reactor. The printer nozzle will form the fragrance molecules. After that, they will be released. The astronaut takes in the odor and adapts to the best mental status to continue the Martian mission. Meanwhile, the earring can identify the molecular formula of new odors and copy it. Hence, all the earring owners can share multiple fragrances. Today is the date of the first Martian mission called Exploration Commencement. 4 astronauts, including me, are selected as the first array of Martian colonists. We are going to live on Mars for a year to settle down a base for the latecomers and do various scientific experiments. We are in SpaceX Dragon, the rocket transporting us to Mars. Only 3 minutes left before the launching. I've longed for this moment for so long that I'm now super excited. My heart rate reaches 130 beats per minute, far above the maximum 100 beats per minute of the normal range. I feel a sense of suppression on my chest and can hardly breathe. Oh, the AI advises mint flavor. I can feel a flow of coolness in my lungs. I'm coming down slowly. Mars, I'm coming! After a 39-day journey, I eventually step on Mars. It also means that I've already eaten 170 meals of space food. Although we have a global foodie collection ranging from spaghetti to pie, I tried all of them. I'm hungry, but I lost appetite. I really miss hot pot, barbecue, roasted caramel, and the food of mama. Ah, AI, please do not add me the caramel flavor. I do not want to starve to death on Mars. But this deceptive strategy seems effective to retrieve my appetite eating the compressed biscuits. Today my menstruation starts. I'm agitated without reasons. So the AI releases almond odor to comfort me. I can refresh my mind. Since my experiment highly demands accuracy, I'm nervous. Then the AI recommends jasmine to me. I can be relieved to the positive stress level. After focusing on the experiments, I'm worn out. Taking violet fragrance into my nose, wish me to have a relaxing sleep tonight.
Hey Eugene, it's your birthday today. Happy birthday from Mars. Here's the special gift I prepared for you. The taste of Martian Earth. Hope you will like it. What a pity that we cannot celebrate with each other this year. Due to the transmission delay, we cannot even have real-time interactions like VR dating. I could only relieve my missing you by smelling your unique body scent produced by the earring.
My aromatic atomic 3D printer earring performed well on Mars. However, it can merely offer partial experience associated with memories. It can never substitute the enjoyment of having real goodies or meeting beloved ones. Thanks for watching.
Thanks a lot. Great. So maybe we can have up to 5 minutes of Q&A with Wendy. Wendy, if you want to share your screen. Oh, no, you're there. Great. Okay. So what are maybe some comments or some questions from the guests?
Can I ask a question, Cesar?
Please go ahead.
So yeah, thanks very much for the video, guys. Very enlightening and entertaining. I had a question which was, I remember reading somewhere about smell and memory being very connected, you know, so is there do you think there's a way of using your device to kind of keep mental calmness by connecting to old memories somehow?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the question. I did the research for the connection between the memories and the odors, because some kinds of that depends on if that kinds of odor associates like recalls to the good memories, like the goodies or happy or dating, or then that may improve your mentality. But if that kinds of odors is connecting to a kind of very bad memory, like when you encounter something very embarrassment, like that may is that like discourage you.
Yeah, it could have the negative effect. But I think somehow memory and smell could be combined in your device somehow. You know, it seems a really powerful mental health support, or just stimulation. You know, maybe sometimes you have to remember the bad memories. Maybe it makes your current situation look good.
Yeah, I think that can be customized. I input the user's unique data about their somehow it may also reflect some forced memory.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Maybe a question to Colin that is connected to that. When you are designing rockets, actually, is the smell one of the parameters in the engineering work?
Yeah, for Crew Dragon, I'm not sure if smell was a particular parameter. I know that there's definitely limits that we place from an engineering perspective on organic volatiles and various things in the spacecraft that we're allowed to have for the astronauts. But I think unfortunately, kind of the sensory experience is nothing that is not exactly explicitly designed for. I think right now, spacecraft, we're kind of limited around the focus of the utilitarian aspects of making sure that the oxygen to nitrogen content in the air for the astronauts or the temperature range is within allowable bounds. But I think it's really interesting to think about how, especially if you're thinking about longer duration missions. Personally, I would be pretty unhappy if I was in a Crew Dragon for the mission to Mars, given that it's about the size of a minivan in the internal volume. But I think considering kind of these longer term duration missions where you have, again, we are sensory beings, like we take in touch, smell, sight, and how do we stimulate ourselves in ways that provide some semblance of comfort, especially when we're traveling or in a place where the human body was really never intended to be. So maybe a question that I have for you, Wendy, is considering kind of the space limitations as well as how wearables might function in space. Why did you choose the earring form factor versus other form factors for this sense olfactory device?
Because I think firstly the earring is close to your nose, so it's more it's easier for you to smell. And secondly, because currently there's an existing technology of the like the fragrance earring, but that's not particularly customized to the real-time emotion. It's more like pre-programmed. It also detects your emotions via your heart rate. But I want to improve it while some facial expression detection that can reflect your current mental status more accurately.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. We're going to be moving forward. So for the judge, do you have the Google form open, and have you been able? Okay, perfect, great. So we'll move on to the next student. So the second team is with Fergal. So Fergal, can you help him to do the sound? Can you help to do the sound? Okay. Can you hold it for him? Okay. So you guys are filming. Okay. So Fergal is going to be presenting. Just hold a second, Fergal. Okay. So we are making a clap. We are doing a clap because we need to get the recording. We have several cameras, so I need to make sure that we have it all in the same. So can you please get into the close to Fergal? And once they are filming, okay. Sorry, the sound is a bit echoey. Sorry about that. Okay, are you ready? Okay. Okay. Speak to. Oh, sure.
Yeah, I like that side.
Sure.
So let's just start. Okay. All right. So I'm doing Mars 2025, and a question that we ask every day during our class is, what will Mars look like in 2025? Well, for starts, we know we won't have anything artificial. We won't have anything built. We won't have any infrastructure. A lot of it will just be natural resources, and we know that the first inhabitants there will be astronauts and scientists, and they'll be in charge of finding resources and trying to find a sustainable way for more people to come from Earth. So during my research, finding more about what will Mars look like in the near future, 3 questions arise when I was doing my research. And these 3 questions were, how will we explore Mars? Can exploration methods used on Earth be applied to exploring on Mars? How can we further accelerate scientific exploration on Mars to enhance our quality of life? Although these questions can't be answered easily on Earth, but then I hope through this project I can speculate
and try and create an everyday project in the form of a wearable, which scientists and astronauts can use when they're on Earth to explore on Mars to explore the terrain. So this is my initial prototype that I have, and it is basically a glove with a monitor that has two functions. The first function is that the glove can be used to touch any material on Mars, and that information about the material will be shown onto the monitor, so that it feels like a mobile science lab. The second one is a health vital. So then inside the glove, we'll have different sensors which can track the user's health vitals and also alert the user when anything leaves its normal parameters. So as I said before, I will then separate the product into two different components, which is the glove and also the monitor. So the first part is the glove, and then I realized that when I did my research, that a lot of these technologies still don't exist yet, and they are way too big to put on a glove. So then this is a concept of how the glove will look like if we made it now, and that I hope that in the future, when we do have more advanced technology, that a lot of these things will be smaller and that it can be easily placed on a glove, so that it can be used for exploring Mars. So then the left side here is the health part, and the right side here is the scientific part. So then the second part is a monitor. So then here I wanted to be able to analyze the information that was found from the glove, and that how it works will be explained in this concept video I made. So here you can see the user picking up the glove, and it will immediately analyze the information onto the monitor, so that it will tell users information about the role that they're or any foreign object. So I know that a lot of these things might not work on Mars because a lot of things on Mars aren't visible. But products like these, I feel like will have the potential to change how we explore Mars in Mars 2025. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay.
Yeah.
May I ask a simple question? Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, it got a little bit echoey there, so I couldn't quite follow when you were explaining exactly what the sensors did. So when you pick up something, it kind of analyzes it, does it? So it picks up information from the samples that's touching the glove. Is that the case?
So then a user can pick up the sample. For example, I'm holding onto this ring, for example, and then the sensors on the glove will analyze the mic, and then on the screen it will tell you information about the mic. So maybe the materials it is used, and also information about whether or not this is important for us on Mars, or whether we have this as a resource to use, and like it will be helpful for scientists to make quick decisions that they would otherwise need to make on in a lab.
Yeah. No, okay. I can see that being useful here already. I'd love something like that. I have a question, which is how do you see this benefiting, kind of mental situation of the Martian inhabitants? Do you think it's, helping stress levels? How does it help them, like in a mental health capacity?
So if we do go back to our slides,
Sure.
So then I have a component on my slide where I found this research on how heat sources from people can be used to see what they're feeling. And even though this is still a qualitative thing, I feel like that this has the potential to be more quantitative. and that it will give more direct information to the scientists or the explorer when they're exploring Mars, and that will help them make more useful decisions when they're in a sense of danger or when they need help from other people.
Thank you.
Yep. And I heard that there was a question from the room.
Yeah, I was just asking if you think this glove could be useful on Earth too.
Yeah, I think that it's not only my product here, but then a lot of the products here, I think do have the potential to be bought back on Earth, because I personally feel that products don't need to be designed for Mars, but then they can be designed for everywhere. So then products like these, I feel like do have the potential to be on Earth for an everyday person. So maybe I would not have access to a lab, but then it would be fun or interesting to do experiments when I'm on a trip or I'm on a vacation, and I can easily take out a glove and I can touch and feel different materials, and I can know more. So I feel like it'll be useful on Earth and on Mars. Yes?
I have a question. So when you touch the material, would it instantly analyze it, or would you have to feel every single surface of the material you're holding in order to get like a full analysis of the object?
That's a very interesting question. So what I envision is that when the user touches a material, it will, the sensors on the glove will analyze what is on there, and then it will compare it with the databases from Earth and like the information that we have today. And then using that information, it will show you information about it, so you won't have to like move around and like touch every surface. But of course, it would be better if like we did like a more in-depth study in a lab, but then it will be quick information that will be useful for people on Mars.
So it sort of just compares it to the objects on Earth and finds like a similar, maybe like a similar object, and just gives you information based on that.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe like if I touch the mic, then it will analyze that, oh, this is an alloy. There's a lot of different materials. So then it will be compared back to like the database. So what can this be made out of? And then it will list out of like all of the potential answers of like what it could be on the monitor. So then you would have information to know, oh, this is a rare resource that we need in order to survive on Mars, or oh, this is a common thing, and we can take this next time when we go on this expedition. Yeah. Yeah. All right. No problem.
So I think it's overall quite interesting, and thank you for your presentation. So well, I'm just thinking, I'm just imagining, I think so. None of us really has been to Mars, and I guess even a Mars rover hasn't given us that much information, whether like how much dangers are potentially there. Of course, there's like the whole the atmosphere, etc. But is it potential? My question is like, would it have to be my glove that's touching the material? Could it be that me as a person doesn't have to touch it, something else can touch it first? Because I mean, I'm imagining a little bit sci-fi now, and I'm like these movies where I'm touching something and things happen to me. So is there maybe a pre-scan possible before I even have to touch it?
I think the initial reaction I had to the brief was that it would be a thing that people can use instantly. But then thinking from a sci-fi side, maybe it could be like a drone or a rover, and that can have the technology on the drone. And like I think it has that potential as well. So it doesn't have to be used on humans, but then it can also be used on like drones or rovers or like things on Mars as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, no problem.
Nomi and Matthew?
Nomi and
Matthew?
Oh, and Nomi's story.
Oh, yes, that's right. Okay. No, it's okay. So I'm going to switch here so that we don't have an echo. So Nomi's going to start. Actually, I need to have this one with the sound because I think she wants to play a movie. Nomi, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. So should I play the video?
Yes, please.
I go to the next slide.
Okay, so it's an introduction video, and I hope you can better immerse in our story. So first of all, we want to answer the question of the working mode on Mars. In 2030, there are not too many people landing on Mars, and the environment on the surface of Mars is very harsh. So human activities are mainly carried out on Mars base, and outdoor exploration tasks are mainly given to machines and robots, and people are responsible for collecting and analyzing data. So based on this, we create an illustration about the working sign of a Martian resident. He wears a brain-computer interface and controls multiple screens. And obviously, he doesn't look easy. But how can we make him work more efficiently, conveniently, and even comfortably? So this has become the main problem we want to solve. So next slide, please. So we design mobile non-invasive BCI assistant. Oh, the former one. Okay, thank you. Based on the existing BCI technology, the improved non-invasive BCI will become a personal assistant in our work and life. With it, people can not only control everything by their minds and concentrate their attention more, but also have a clearer understanding of themselves and relieve stress by being monitored. Next slide, please. So then we try to make our first prototype. Firstly, we figure out the working principle of the brain-computer interface, and thus clarifying the basis of our design and exploring its interaction with people. But soon we discovered many shortcomings. For example, the arrangement of electrodes should follow an internationally recognized system, such as 10 to 20, 10 to 10, or 10 to 5 international system. And also the exposed wires make it look inconvenient to wear, and the display on the back is also not suitable for personal observation. So based on the feedback from Cesar, Martin, and also from Professor Zubrin, we improved our design, and Marcel will introduce our final design next. So next slide, please.
Can you be very loud?
Yeah. Okay, so essentially, what we finally concluded on was basically just design. So for the last prototype, we focused on 3 different areas: appearance, functions, types of functions, and materials. So like from the feedback that we got, we essentially made it more, made a mobile non-invasive BCI. So it's more applicable and effective for the tasks that they were doing. So the main change from the first prototype, which was from sitting down, is to how we could be more active, not we, but like the users be more active with what they're doing. So whilst they're, for example, conducting their tasks, controlling machines, or looking at doing whatever Mars mission they have, they can also eat, like drink at the same time, or like communicate with other people, which helps to like have less restrictions on the concurrent design compared to what we could have in 10 years, basically. So the design of this, we looked at bionic to more beautified appearance, where we looked at insect wings, where these wires would be more constructive, and all those electrodes would be in their optimal positions. Also, we included an AI assistant and a head-up display function to what we said before, to help the psychological factor of those people up there, as they will have a serious impact. The material that we will definitely consider, which will be used, will be an anti-radiational material, which is a metal fiber radiation protection material for electrical conductivity, thermal conductivity, magnetic permeability, and also it will be mixed with mycelium, which is a fungus with more intermediate growth, where it has a biological material with tough textures, where it can basically, if there's anything wrong with it, they can fix it in a way, basically. Ultimately, through this device, we plan to maximize efficiency on Mars with those missions, and essentially for the future of colonizing Mars, and more importantly, for humanity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry for asking on the spot. Okay. So sorry, the sound's going to come from here. So okay. Yeah. Questions or comments from our guests, perhaps?
I heard an interesting something about the fiber of mushrooms, the mycelium. Yeah. Can you just continue on that a bit? How did that help the design?
Because that mycelium, which is basically the material, which is a fungus, like fast-growing fungus that we look into, because like since it's like 30 people on Mars, so it's the first settlement there won't be as developed. Materials can't be there like that quickly to fix certain devices such as this. So that would be basically, in a way, be able to like fix things. For example, if there was a part missing because a mission gone wrong or something, like that material will be there to like help
grow
it. Yeah.
the fungi.
Yeah, in Mars. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
that's
a clever patch-up scheme. Yeah, that's nice.
Oh, okay. There's a question on the screen from Wendy. From Greg. How is the mycelium used? It's sort of a similar question, isn't it? Similar question, yeah. Okay. Okay. Any other question, or we're moving? Okay, sure.
I'm just curious, can you explain a little bit more how exactly, I know it's a brain-computer interface, but how does it, I know that's placed in the head, and how does it necessarily integrate with the mind, and how does it fully
So essentially, those electrodes that are placed look into the brain waves that essentially monitor the brain waves. So hopefully, in the next 10 years, we will be able to analyze and probably look deeper into what those each of those brainwaves actually mean, and from what has been produced of those brainwaves, how they can be essentially used to control other things for like machines and robots. Yeah.
So essentially, you would create some kind of database that collects these brainwaves.
Yeah.
And then you can use it for future reference.
Or it's more of a concurrent thing. So the brainwaves that are produced will immediately, for example, control like machines that are like out of Mars, or like multiple like machines at the same time. Yep.
Okay. Thanks very much. Actually, because it's still recording, we need to still hold it. Yeah. Thank you. Okay.
Quick question?
Yeah, question from us.
So, yeah, thanks very much for entertaining presentation. Very high, energy there. EEG is like has been with us for a long time. It has some problems. How do you see those being overcome in the future? How will electrodes be able to read the brain from outside the skull?
I'm not really sure on that yet, but it's more of a like progressive technology. So hopefully in 10 years that will be explored, and the research and findings from it can definitely hopefully be able to be applicable for this device.
I believe that would be a good question for Martin Dinov, who's a neuroscience background.
Yeah,
Martin?
I was just going to ask Miles, what kind of problems does EEG have? Because I mean, it has tons, but it's very useful, right? Like you can use it practically today for clinical things, people that can't otherwise move, in defense settings, and consumer headsets now for meditation. I mean, it's being used today.
I suppose it's the ambiguity. So we have a student trying to design an empathetic video game system, and he kind of gave up using EEG simply because of the ambiguity of like, is this excitement or is this bored? I can't remember. But I mean, I'm fascinated by it as a technology. I suppose my question was more like, I mean, don't be to the student teams, don't be afraid of like abandoning current technology and reimagining something better. It's like maybe EEG just will never have it, and there'll be something else that will come along, probes in our brains that overcomes the problems of EEG. EEG, I guess in a way, is like it's a remote sensing system. It's like trying to listen to someone through the wall, I suppose. So, I guess I'm just trying to like explore the possibilities of the imagining some new, completely new way. Sorry, I'm not looking at the camera.
I want to add something, because originally we have two options, either to use EEG or MEG, and we think EEG is like more suitable for our device, so we choose it.
Yeah, just one comment. I mean, MEG is great. It's for those that don't know, it's similar to EEG. It has some kind of capabilities that EEG doesn't have. They're actually very similar though, but MEG is not as portable. So I mean, you made the right choice, kind of thinking that EEG is the way to go if you want something that more or less exists today, right? And bringing it there. Miles, I'm all for using and imagining all sorts of different technologies. But they take time to build, and I think what's taken to Mars will be what's tried and tested, right? What's tried and proven to work for some things, rather than the latest and greatest. If you look at the hardware that goes into space, I guess Colin can say more about this, but I think if you look at the hardware that goes into space, it's usually not kind of state of the art, right? It's 1 or 2 or 3 generations back, right? Because it has to be radiation hardened and so on.
Yeah. I understand that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. But I think in the case of SpaceX, I think Elon has a vested interest in both Neuralink and SpaceX. So maybe we're flying the neural laces for the first Martian astronauts. We'll see.
Moving to the next student. It's the next student group. Okay, the next student group we have is 2033. So we have Erica and Oscar. So can somebody do the clap and the microphone? No. We need to have the camera, people. Can you please, are you filming? Okay, you need to come, both of you, and then we do one clap from Erica. So hold up a second. Are you guys coming in frame? Who is this first to speak? Okay. Okay, so you need to be very loud. So don't clap. Okay. Oh, sorry, the video is in my direction.
Okay, so so before talking about our product, we're first going to explain how we devised this product. So what we did is that we tried a narrative approach. So we try to devise what a normal or a day-to-day situation would be on Mars. And what we thought about was a injured person on Mars doing some dangerous, treacherous expedition, and suddenly someone gets hurt. So we figured, so we try to think about this main problem, and through this narrative, we found out we want to create a product that can heal or prevent pain by using the mind or inhibiting the mind. So through these different storyboards, we're just trying to put our own minds in that perspective of what it would be like in that situation and how you can try and solve it. And we also did like a creative written piece. So we've taken the forms from our storyboard and we try to emulate that and how the brain can be inhibited by pain. The biggest take from this is that we realized what we needed to research. So the first thing that we researched was nerve stimulation, like projects, devices such as TENS. So we looked more into those products, and we devised a final design that uses the spine. And basically, because the spine is where the brain signals pain, and where through this device, which Erica will explain how it works, inhibits the pain for a long period of time for astronauts to do intensive expeditions when they're hurt.
Yeah, as Oscar mentioned earlier, we based our ideas off a storyboard. So our product is called the PRID, which stands for Pain Receptor Inhibitor Device. It is essentially an emergency medicine device that helps combat and completely alleviate the pain as soon as the body feels a threat, which is how the body recognizes injuries. The way this works is that through this part, which is a soft technology made out of silicon, it senses the nerve impulses as they come and intercepts them, and it is able to interpret the information from it, such as the location of the threat and how credible the threat is to the body. And from that, it sends this information up to this main part, which is a detachable unit, allowing for flexibility of the body. From there, it sends an electrical current down into the, you can't see it here, but there's an internal device attached to the base of the neck inside the body. And this sends the electrical current down to where the injury is. How this works is that the electrical current will combat the pain by scrambling the signals as they go to the brain.
You made a, you want to show the physical?
Yeah. So here's the prototype. And also to lastly to hone in on this narrative approach, we decided to create a small graphic novel just to explain the context of how this would be used on Mars.
All in all, essentially what the PRID is a technological it's a technological extension of ourselves. It is the first step in revolutionizing the field of medicine in Mars and reimagining the human condition. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Do we have questions from the audience?
So pain is a way for our body to tell us that there's something wrong, that you've hurt yourself or whatnot. So if you scramble the messages, what benefit does that serve? That you're no longer, yes, maybe you no longer feel the pain, but you still need to address the issue at hand.
The way we market this essentially is that the PRID is as essential to the human body as the sensation of pain itself. It doesn't, like in terms of when they're on a mission or something, they would have a monitor which would let them know that they're injured. And obviously they would still feel some sort of initial sense of pain, but the PRID acts almost instantly by sending the electrical currents. And from my knowledge, you should be able to feel that current. We thought of this, it's inspired by current neuromodulation devices and electrotherapy devices, which are therapeutic devices that help deal with chronic pain. But we've modified it into something that deals with all kinds of pain, like whenever you sense it. Yeah, I don't know if that answered your question though.
To add upon that, we're mainly focusing on like very crucial emergency situations. So I don't think we don't want astronauts to use this like as their in their leisure time, I guess. And also it also addresses the main issue of medicine, which is constantly try to produce new types of analgesics. And obviously, as this is 2033, we don't know the type of bacterial resistances or how small or big the therapeutic window is. So this is one solution to fixing that.
There's a question from Budi Mulyo. Would the brain finally adapt to the PRID? So would the brain adapt and just become more pain tolerant, or would it change? Perception of pain would change?
I guess so, like if you use this long enough, but this part is actually detachable. So unless they're on extremely long-term missions that would allow the brain time to adapt, I don't think it would happen so quickly. Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, it also wouldn't be on all the time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a question on the board.
How is this powered, and how long would it last to scramble the pain?
So we decided that the external part is like an adapted piece in the suit. So if there is emergency power in the spacesuit, it should be effective in that way.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other?
I have a quick question.
Yeah, question for Mals.
So yeah, great to see physical prototyping. That's really nice. So I imagine this is, you're imagining scenarios we can't imagine, like very serious emergencies. How does the astronaut know that their pain is being overridden? Because it feels like, you know, this should be a conscious choice. You know, I press on something and I know I've got a job to do, get rid of the pain, but it's important to know the pain is still there. How does that happen?
Yeah, that is one important point, because like if something was like inflamed or bleeding, the fact that the person does not know it's there, it could be quite dangerous. But I think astronauts should be trained that it is it's a more of a, the function is more used for not feeling pain, but for not feeling pain in that immediate instance, so they can find rescue or just immediate help.
What I think is interesting is about the kind of conscious decision to turn on and off pain. You know, that they're in an emergency situation. They have to switch off the pain because they have to deal with something. If they don't, there's no one else who's going to deal with it. So yeah, I find that fascinating. So some kind of interface to allow them to control your device, I think would be good.
I think what would help explain like our answer to your question more is through the storyboard, where we actually crafted a situation where someone gets separated from their unit and they have an ankle injury. And it's like up there. So essentially the PRID helps them deal with that pain long enough to find their unit and get to safety, and then ensure that everybody else is safe. Also, we would think that something like this eventually would become like a prerequisite to long-term missions. So they would be trained on how to like use this, I guess. Here's another question.
Thank you.
I think we answered that question already.
Yeah, I think we should move on. So, yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next team is not present, so we're going to be going to the following one. Sorry about this. Okay, so the next team is Winnie and Yui. Okay, so do you guys want to play a video first, right? Hello. Hello. Okay. So you play the video first?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
So 2060 is the year that we imagine we would have 100,000 people on Mars. And that's a large enough population to know that we've been able to sustain ourselves. But there's still a lot of research and studies and exploration that we want to do on Mars. However, we can't expect everyone on Mars to be going out in a full-fledged spacesuits because it's too much to produce that much spacesuits from older population. So that's where our new product Multi-planetary comes in. It's a lighter, more fully integrated product that would help to protect people when they go out on Mars.
So Multi-planetary is a set of device that enhances the human breathing on Mars.
Loud.
So this is our first product, the audio enhancement device that provides three main functions. So physical dust protection, integrated warning system, and wireless communication. So we chose physical dust protection because the Martian soil is toxic and could be dangerous if it's in our body. So the product always allows to converse of being protected from Martian soil. The product comes with an integrated warning system for radiation and environmental elements that are dangerous to humans.
So on the note about enhancement, our next product is it's a dexterity enhancement product that basically adds the sixth finger to your hand, because we've done research and we've seen that even though on Earth having a sixth finger seems like a defect, however, it's a very multitasking function that allows you to do basically tasks that requires two hands or only one hand. So it's very useful when you're doing research or exploration trips. So that would be another great feature.
So if we want to survive on Mars, then we must learn to adapt the environment. And since we don't have that many years to wait for the evolution naturally, So we need to take matters into our own hands. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, questions or comments? Yes.
Yes, how do you control this additional digit?
So we imagine that it would be neurologically. So it's almost like an implant that you implant into your body, and using sorry, muscle electricity. Is that the right word? Yeah.
So I think like it's interesting to see that we can add extra parts to our body. I think what will be like, I think the next step potentially would be, okay, how does our ecosystem, like of gloves, like or of fork and knife, how does that behavior change in our lives? Or is it literally, is that just for people that will forever live on Mars? And then like, so I think this is the first step. Okay, we can add extra things to our body, and I think the next step is really how does that change our life? Like, I think it would be great to see like some scenarios. Okay, where is this 6 finger helping us, or where is this ear piece, or like are there 2 or just 1, or like how is that enhancing our lives? So like I think it would be great to see like some scenarios and to really see the benefit of these.
You want to add something?
Oh, just kind of a separate note of what Flo is saying. I'm also curious, like, these parts are all quite mechanical, but, you know, as we go to Mars, like, can things be grown instead? So I'm curious, because it's quite far in the future as well, like, can these parts be more organically grown parts that can be more naturally integrated onto our body rather than something so mechanical and robotic?
So yeah, to respond to the first point, I think in terms of enhancing, so that's an idea that we wanted to play with, at least for the audio enhancement product. So yeah, because if we have this platform, we were thinking, how could we do something more? So a feature that we thought about was adding environmental warnings. So basically warnings that you would get from sensors integrated into the product about radiation, about heat, about dust, things that are dangerous to humans being, and on being more bio inspired. So we also thought about that as well, and that's actually was our starting point, because we wanted to. This is quite far into the future, like you said. However, before we start growing something in our body, because it still seems like a very novel and I think sometimes strange ideas to a lot of people, this I think would be a good segue for us, not just to, because if we grow something on our bodies, it's also very permanent, but this is something that we can replace. We can try it out first, and then if we do feel like there's clearly a need for that on Mars, we can fully integrate biologically into our body.
Oh, one thing. I don't mean that you actually grow it on your body. I mean, can you imagine it like a finger grown in like a dish, and then you kind of
add it
onto your hand.
Touching it. So a couple of so Mal sent a reference of a student who did a similar project, and somebody suggests the artist to check out. So please check out on the chat. And yeah, any other comments or feedback from the room or from online, Miles? Or
I was just going to say, I love the audio augmentation. I think that's something unique. The 3rd digit, I think, is something that we've seen in other projects here and there, but I would love to have heard more about the way that audio augmentation changes our lifestyle, changes our abilities. Because I would love that kind of superpower to be like have something on me. Yeah.
Cool. Actually, this is maybe a quick question for Colin. I know there's extensive training for the astronauts, but are there any plans in the industry to improve humans in a genetic way, or like a kind of novel way? Because we invest so much money into the hardware. What about the human hardware, quote unquote?
Yeah, I think the current understanding is we're working around the limitations of what we have, like until the technologies are kind of proven to function in like these. I think a big thing for current manned space exploration is that there's a heavy emphasis on redundancy and fault tolerance. It's a bit of a risk-averse industry because the cost of human life is extremely high, especially when you invest so much to send them to space. But I think with these augmentations, like you can definitely enable a lot more human capability. I guess something that's not considered maybe as much, or something that is considered into like human factors design. I think a place maybe where like the extra digit or even sensory augmentation could be very helpful is that in space, it's very difficult for astronauts to, and also people have hypothesized this for Mars as well, is like you'll see like muscular degeneration because you don't see the effect of gravity on your body. It's extremely difficult to counteract muscular atrophy. So like the NASA's handbook on designing for, let's say, the strength of the human grip for an astronaut that has been in space for multiple months is significantly diminished compared to what even like a typical adult is capable of. So I think like thinking about augmentations, not merely as like an increasing capability, but also like even compensating for the failure of our biology to be able to adapt to space is a really interesting idea. And I think it'll be pretty necessary as well. I think with like the extra digit, like kind of what Miles was saying is that there have been a lot of research groups and labs that have looked into extra digits. I know there was like extra limbs and various things that have been experimented with and played with. I think like an additional thumb would be helpful for like power grasps and manipulation of tools. But I think especially for future space exploration, I think if anything, yeah, to survive we must adapt. Like we have to find ways to adapt our bodies, whether it be biologically or mechanically augmenting them in order to be able to handle the environments.
I think it's super interesting when you said the word necessary, because I think that's something we'll debate after in the short panel. But I think that's a key word. Like will those modifications will be just good to have, or will be necessary? Because when you say necessary, it poses an ethical question. Like when do we decide something is necessary versus it would be nice to have? So I think that's something we can debate, and that we'll debate afterwards. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Okay, so we go into the next. Okay, actually, this is it. Oh. Okay, so the feedback. I hope you all had the chance to complete the feedback form. Everybody has got a chance to complete the feedback form. So if you haven't, it's okay. Now we're gonna go into the panel. Do you guys hear? Okay, so we are quite close to the end, and we don't want to hold people too late. Do you hear us here? Yes. Okay, great. So this is a question that we'd like to ask the panel. And the question is this. So this is a question that's open for everybody in the panel. So how and should we design the human bodies and minds for Mars? So this is a question we'd like to open to the panel. So I would like to take that question first. So who would be willing to take this question? So maybe Christine, or do you want to go? Who wants to go first? So that's a question I kind of call in. Maybe you can continue with you because you were necessary.
Yeah, I can speak more to that. I think there's like some ethical questions there, but like how and should we design human bodies and minds for Mars? I think the human body has been evolved for the specific requirements, one could say, for like living comfortably on Earth. However, Mars itself is a completely different and challenging environment. I think something that's also like I think in the science fiction visions of what it is to explore and live on Mars also does not factor in that there is no magnetosphere or atmosphere that can protect our bodies from, again, like we can definitely not survive on the surface of Mars for maybe more than a few seconds, but even for like long-term living and sustaining ourselves, like our cells and biology are not well suited to like the high energy radiation that is experienced at the surface of Mars. So even like if you were to live in a space, if you were to have a spacesuit, like after a few hours of exposure, your incidence for like cancer or our cells degrading is extremely high. So I think in order to successfully sustain a population on Mars, we have to either mitigate these risks that our bodies cannot handle, or we have to think very creatively about how we can augment our biology or compensate for our biology to be able to handle this extreme environment.
Thanks a lot. So my following question would be, then who would make that sort of decision? Do you think it will be the astronaut themselves? Or do you think it will be the company that send them and invest so much in them? Down the line, who do you think would be making those decisions?
I would hope that the astronauts would have a personal say in terms of what things they can and can't do. But let's say if you're, imagine if you were, let's say, like if you were to sail across the ocean, you could be given a chance to either sail aboard a luxury yacht or on a log with a simple cloth sail. I think there's things that would make your life as an explorer much easier and much less risky as well. So if you had if an astronaut was given the kind of the choice of, like, you can have, let's say, and there's like science fiction thinking, right? Let's say if there is some magical like genetic modification that could help compensate and enable cell repair to combat kind of this high energy radiation. Of course, like I think it's a kind of a, it's like if you're planning on being on Mars, it's either you have to live underground for the rest of your life and be very careful about your radiation exposure, or you have this treatment that allows you to be able to handle extremely high energy radiation for extended periods of time. So I think the same way that, like, if you were exploring Antarctica today, you could have, we use technology. If anything, like, we are intricately tied to our technology now. Like, I would say that technology is a very human thing, but like Antarctic explorers oftentimes, like if you're given a fancy state-of-the-art coat to help compensate for the extreme temperatures, or if you did not have that, I think most people, and especially the explorers, would choose to have the best available technology to maximize their chances of survival.
Mm. Yeah, actually, let me jump in there, because I think the parallel with Antarctic or Arctic explorers is quite a good one, because maybe I see, missions to Mars as probably not being to create a population, but, to be, pioneering exploration missions. So the people that go on them perhaps are like, kind of more suitable, more kind of psychologically open to some kind of more extreme augmentation, because their mission and their personal motivation is to go there and explore. So, and a little bit like Antarctica, it's like we've explored Antarctica and Arctica, but no one's really settled there. It's not very hospitable. Why would you go there? And I think maybe a second point is also to put it into the perspective of, there's some extraordinary technologies coming through about potential human augmentation, like CRISPR and other, genome therapy and gene editing activities. So you wonder what will be happening on Earth itself, that whilst people are flying to Mars, that perhaps makes the Mars, some perhaps quite extraordinary augmentations that will happen to astronauts be actually only slightly more advanced than what people are up to on Earth itself. So I think it reflects down to, what are we actually going to be doing on the planet Earth?
So you're breaking a little bit.
Sorry.
Everybody here?
can hear you, Caesar.
Did they drop out?
Martin, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
I think Caesar's frozen.
I can hear you, yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
think Caesar
can
might
hear
be
you guys.
frozen.
Ah.
Unfortunate.
Oh, well, we're still here.
Yeah.
Or it looks like his screen just blacked out.
Yeah.
That's a
So
nice
kind of like-
shot.
Yeah. It's like PR, you know, we said something wrong.
Yeah.
It's intercepted.
I'll see if I can get Caesar on a cell phone.
Yeah.
Through a different way. Hold on one
Some-
second.
Yeah, it's unusual for Zoom to not come back soon, isn't it?
Yeah, I've never had this.
Yeah.
Back.
Interesting. Oh, someone's back.
Yeah.
So the connection. So the connection dropped here. I apologize. We are back. Okay. Actually, I had a question for the head of department. Eric, do you hear us? My question is, this department, this course of design is very new inside of the architecture department, and you're seeing such an experiment. What do you make of this? Do you think this is a direction that designers should be looking at, or do you think they should be focused on other areas? You're mentioning that you want to bring these technologies back to Earth. Do you see any technology today that you think could be used on in an earthly manner?
I think everything applies. I mean, everything that we saw today. And the one area, though, that I think is really, really critical is to hear how different experts might actually also think about how these things come together. And I often think that the role of the program is to have a lot of insight, imagination, and to really think about how that insight and that imagination then can become closer to reality simply by reaching out to more people and to reaching out to a wider array of different minds. And I really enjoyed today when we're asking different people specific questions, and that was answered not only by the student, but by hearing different voices around that issue. And that's something I feel like is also often missing within architecture. Architecture, the way that education is thought of is that the students almost work as architects in studio time and time again, and you develop your expertise by working, hearing critical feedback, but you're not often trying to attempt to partner with an actual architect in order to solve a problem that's unknown. You're actually, in school, you're solving sort of known problems time and time again, and developing your expertise by keep solving like problems in different ways that have been solved for 100 years. And the question in, say, architecture education is really one that revolves around one step every time coming closer to an answer that gets criticized from many different viewpoints, but it converges, like almost all the work converges. Here it seems like a lot of the questions are being asked take indeed the designers to vastly different territories. And I think the part that I would like to strengthen in a way is to have that desire to be something that we're all pursuing, but to feel like we're pursuing a little bit more together. So I really enjoyed hearing Martin, Colin, Miles, and all the other people speaking about the projects, and perhaps even in these reviews to have a lot more time for that, so that maybe there's just even in 10 to 15 minutes to really try to drill into the project more deeply. And it might be the expert who's speaking from their expertise on that. And of course, when you hear the voice of someone who has that deep expertise, you can go really far quite quickly. And if that happens at, say, like the half or the 3/4 review, which I'm sure it did, then you can actually, it allows the student to actually pursue that much more deeply, I think. So I think that's sort of, it's level of dialogue more than anything.
Thanks a lot. What does the student think? So during the intermediary review, you get some feedback. Is any of you have changed the trajectory between the intermediary review and what you presented? So you have Yui here, Matthew, Erica, Oscar. You need to speak into the mic, so you have to come much closer.
Martin gave me some advice about like what existing products are done, because obviously like extrapolative design is very difficult if you do not know like what's out there. And I looked at like things that could be that could realistically be done in the next like couple of years, or the next logical steps of those existing products. Yeah.
And Martin, so thank you very much, Oscar. So based on the feedback that you gave, Oscar, and your other teams, this is a question that I think we enjoyed a lot working with you guys, but what do you think is the value that experimenting with young designer brings to a startup company or to the London Mars Society? What do you think is the input from our community to yours? What do you think we exchange here? Maybe this is for Zera. What's the value about that? What do you think?
Sure. I mean, I'll just say that some of the ideas are not things like we would work on or are working on right now or would necessarily work on, right? Because we have our focus, what our technology is, what our product is, but it's really nice to still explore these ideas, right? And like get these ideas from you guys, because even though we might not end up implementing any of them ourselves, they then in turn generate other ideas, right? That might be important for us to think about. So it's been fun. It's been fun. Thanks, guys.
I think for me, so from the kind of Mars Society point of view, what was really interesting is to see, it was a very hard brief. And especially for this particular group of students, I think these two topics are, arguably some of the most complex around. So we're talking about brain-computer interfaces and Mars, rocket science. So and it's a group of students that don't really have the science background. So they kind of had to think about a lot of these challenges and really use their creativity. And, they had some lessons that we gave them, and, we kind of introduced them. And if it was a lot of material, that they had to deal with. So I think for us, it's very interesting to see just how people, again, from different disciplines that are not in that field kind of can work with that. And yeah, with Mars Society, this is really what we want to do, just to bring different people and to understand how to foster those collaborations better. And I think the guys did also a great job, considering they didn't have much access to prototypes. So I just wanted to kind of compliment them on that, just having to really get inventive and creative with how they work on prototypes.
And I mean, with COVID and all, it's you guys still pulled it off, right? So good job.
Yeah, here, amazing job. I mean, it's like you're probably locked in like away in small rooms. So yeah, respect to you for like being able to deliver that kind of interesting stuff.
So Miles, you've been working in innovation and engineering and design for many years. So when do you think will be the next step? So for example, if those designers are interested in pursuing such idea, do they need to go into engineering? Do they need to partner? How do they actually push those ideas further and transform them into reality? Like, do they compete? Like, how do we get those innovations to be out there or to
Yeah. No, well, to be slightly biased, is like where I am now is a design lab inside a science and technology research center. So, I think they should be true to being designers and collaborate with kind of like fundamental science and design, science and technology researchers. This project really excites me because we're doing something here at the moment with a lab that grows neurons outside the brain. And so, the ideas of trying to explore how design can bring, new applications to that kind of technology. If you can grow neurons outside the brain, how would you use that? How would you use that new technology? And I think design brings a whole new perspective, and the science and technologists are not used to that. And if they're the right kind of characters, then they really welcome it. So I think, it's about engaging deeper inside universities. There's such amazing, fundamental research work going on here. You shouldn't try to, take on a new discipline, but rather bring that kind of creativity and free thinking and collaborate with people in a way as far as possible from your own abilities. So yeah, dig around what's happening. I think I would highly recommend, you know, knocking on doors of the research labs and finding people who are kind of experimenting with the things that you're talking about as being far future. Maybe they can be accelerated into the near future.
Thanks a lot. This is super exciting. I'd like to ask you kind of a closing question, because we are running over time, to Colin. Colin, so you are a young Asian American, and you are working in a cutting edge, and I think a lot of the students can identify with yourself, you know, being young and Asian and doing these amazing things. And but also, like what you said, like Elon and you know, because they invest both in space and in neuroscience company, you said that maybe they are going to be a bit more embracing risk and taking more advanced technology. So so if the students, like Miles is saying, they can knock at the doors of universities, like how likely or what is the path for the students to actually move into those new industries, and how did you do it, and how do you bring new ideas even within those new industries?
Yeah, I think it's a multifaceted question, but I think, yeah, as an Asian American working in this extremely exciting and within new field, I think, yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting opportunities, especially like, at least specifically for like space exploration. Like new space is becoming very real. Like less than a decade ago, people were like laughing us out of the room at SpaceX in terms of us presenting new ideas of how we can actually go about space exploration. And now, like, we've been able to be the first like company that can send commercial, like we're the first non-country in the world that can send astronauts to space. So I think there's a lot of amazing opportunities, and I think there's some radical shifts in thinking and how we approach exploration, or even new technologies, whether it be like neuroscience through Neuralink. And I think there's a lot of interesting and exciting tech developments. I think a big thing is just like keeping an open mind to what these developments are and keeping a pulse on the heartbeat. I think today, what might be seen as like a young upstart and kind of a moonshot might be tomorrow's industry leader. So I think SpaceX has definitely found itself in good fortune of having success after success, but now we find ourselves being the industry leaders in terms of pushing manned space exploration. And in my day-to-day job, I'm like working on the vehicle that will hopefully carry us to Mars. So it's a very exciting time for sure. I think a big thing is just like, in sort of these fields, I think especially I really appreciate your guys' program pushing like in architecture and design as a specific focus, but really taking this sort of design thinking and applying into other realms and thinking of like the science fiction realities that we are living today. I think a big thing to keep in mind is that the future has been thought of already in many ways. People have mulled over what could be and what can happen. I think a big thing is understanding which of those realities can be translated into the present right now, and what you can toss your energies towards.
Thank you very much. I think I'll let Zara or Martin closing for the. Thanks a lot, everybody. Zara, do you want to close? Martin, do you want to close?
Yeah, I can go. Thank you very much well, guys, well done. First of all, really well done. I already said it, and I'm going to repeat it. I think it was a very hard period for everyone, and well done for embracing that. It was a very challenging brief. I hope you've learned something. I said that before as well to you, and I think it's a very opportunity that you had to work on this, and I kind of give credits to Cesar for starting this initiative, and you know, I can say you're probably one of the first like design courses that are on this, so well done. I hope some of you will continue this work, and yeah, Cesar, thank you so much for inviting us. It was really a great experience for us as well to work with you, to work with your students, and to really share some of our passions and our knowledge with you, with the students, and yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Good job.